Welcome to The Sound, KQAL-FM's weekly behind-the-scenes look at Midwestern-made music. From writing and recording to distribution and promotion, The Sound is your source for new releases and exclusive interviews from Midwestern artists. Support for The Sound is made possible by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Rolling.
Tonight, on The Sound, we're flying high as we bring you the newest album from Minneapolis-based band Humbird. This album, titled Right On, is Humbird's third full-length album and features the band's signature indie folk sound. The songs themselves are captivating and full of intense imagery depicting everything from the deep cuts of heartbreak and white supremacy to the untamable beauty of nature. Tonight, we sit down with lead singer and songwriter Siri Undlin to discuss the intricacies of the tracks, the band's unique approach to recording the album, and ask the very important question of if she actually met a ghost on the porch. I'm Abby Hawkey, inviting you to join me as we warm up our vocal cords and prepare to leave the nest as we bring you Right On, the newest album from Humbird, tonight on The Sound.
I'm not mad, but I should be, since true love proved unlucky. I cast the die, I stained my hands on wrongful judgments and half-baked plans. I was right on in loving you, like plywood. How will I sand these scales from my skin? I just wanna be soft again. I was right on in loving you, and dead wrong in thinking we couldn't lose. Right on in loving you, and dead wrong in thinking we couldn't lose. What is it about the space between? We fit so much inside and then find it empty. I'm not singing in an empty room, and if you're hearing this, I hope you know you're right on too. You were wrong before, but that's nothing new. We're all suckers for the way that love makes us fools. So right on in loving, you might be dead wrong, at least you're trying. Right
I'm Abby Hawkey. You are listening to 89.5 KQAL's The Sound. I am joined here by Siri Undlin of indie folk band Humbird. And you just heard the first track off of her third album, I believe, Right On. Yeah. So, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, it's summertime. I love summertime. Yeah, but doing good, all things considered. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day here in Winona.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been hot and then cold, but now it's like a perfect temperature. So, just getting out and walking is just great.
Checking out the river, taking it all in.
Yeah.
I bet. I kind of wish I was in Winona right now. I bet it's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. Tell me a bit about the origins of the band Humbird. How did you come up with the name?
Yeah, I wish I had a good story about the name. I kind of don't. I was in another band that was touring, and I was writing a lot of music at that time, and it kind of like more music than that band could really accommodate, just because there was other songwriters and other musicians. So I kind of was like, I should start a little side project, and I'll put all the other songs there. And we were on tour, and we drove through a small town in Wisconsin called Humbird. I think it was population 67 or something like that. And I was like, oh, Humbird, like that would be a good band name. I'm just going to roll with that for now. Because I kind of was like, I don't know, more casual about it. I think it can be hard to find a band name, but now it's not like a quiet side project. It's like what I spend a lot of time doing. Yeah. And so far I've met a couple people from Humbird, and they've said that they're okay with it, so that's good. Yeah. I've gotten the stamp of approval from a few people that live there, so that's good.
Yeah. I think honestly, I think that happens with a lot of bands in which they're just like, oh, I need to come up with a band name or something like that. So they'll just look out the window and they'll be like, there's a pigeon and there's the sun. Let's go pigeon sun or something like that. So
it's like, it doesn't really it matters so much in some ways, and it doesn't matter at all in others. And it's so stressful when you're trying to like pick a name that's going to encapsulate the music you want to make when you don't know necessarily where the music is going. It's such a funny little imagination exercise.
Yeah. So what does your song and music writing process look like? Where do you usually get your inspiration from?
Well, my songwriting and playing process is always really different. Often starts with lyrics, but sometimes just ideas kind of hit you while you're walking down the street. You got to like run to find a pen and a paper or your phone to make a voice memo. Every song is a little different, but I generally find that I'm writing way more music and music that I like when I'm just paying attention in my life. Like there's just, windows of time where you're so busy and you're kind of just like barely getting through the days for whatever reason. And then there's other chapters of my life where there's like a little more space and a little more time to reflect and witness the world around me. And I think whenever I'm like paying attention in that way, inevitably songs happen more often because I'm like, oh, this interesting thing happened and made me think of that. And your imagination's just like actually able to play with space and time. And and I think that's probably true for a lot of creative people. It's like you got to make space for it. You got to get a little bored and just like look around and then ideas come.
Yeah, take some like self-reflecting walks, things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Would you say that you get a lot of inspiration from, again, just kind of being in nature and seeing kind of like how it, moves and works and stuff like that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's like the ultimate spring of like inspiration and ideas and creativity and also healing. Like sometimes when I go out into nature, like I'm really not creative at all. Like I'm just sort of like walking and watching and thinking. And it's like when you come home from those kind of experiences, even if they're really short, then it's like, oh, I feel like picking up my guitar. But yeah, that's inherent. It's nice to remember that we're all nature. Like we feel so separate from it, and then just like doing little things to remember that you're actually part of it is, I think, super important, whether you're writing songs or not.
Your songs, they have such great imagery, especially on this record.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's something that just kind of transports you to the places in which you are talking about. Like, for instance, in the song Cornfields in Roadkill, talking about that 100-year-old oak tree. It, I guess it makes me wonder, do any of your songs, like, are they like real places that you have been to, or is it just kind of something that, you know, that kind of just came from your imagination?
It's definitely a combination of both. Like in the song you're talking about, Cornfields and Roadkill, like I wasn't thinking of like a specific cornfield, you know, but I was really reflecting on like being a kid that grew up in the Midwest, and you just, everywhere you drive, you're surrounded by cornfields and roadkill, like the song says. And I think like anyone from this region, when we play that song, whether they're into the style of the song or not, they're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think that's sort of what I strive to do with lyrics. Like if I'm thinking of a super specific place, like I'll think of it while I'm writing, I'll think of it while I'm performing the song, but I try to make it the language so that it's not like exclusionary, if that makes sense. Like if I'm going to sing about a city, or I'm going to sing about a lake or a forest or whatever it is, like just trying to make it so that anyone listening can like know what I'm talking about and have their own experience with it. Like, because details are so helpful for that. But if you're too detailed, it just sounds like a diary entry. And I think it kind of loses some of its power if you're like too specific. So yeah.
Because, you know, you go to one place and you're going to have a different experience there than somebody else would if they go to the same place. So
and the place changes. Like you might go there like a year later or something, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so different now. Yeah.
I'm actually going to go into another song now. Once again, I am Abby Hawkey, and you are listening to 89.5 KQAL's The Sound, and I am joined here by Siri Undlin of the indie folk band Humbird, and this next song is track number 3 off of your third album, Right On. This is Blueberry Bog.
Take me to Blueberry Bog. I'll take the trail straight through the fog. The end time's on everyone's mind. I've been having these dreams for a long time. You see the heartache from miles away. All the while water's rising, you got debts to pay. You're not waiting on a savior, you're doing okay. Finding silver linings threaded through the day. At least today. Take me to my favorite booth on the northeast corner, 13th Avenue. Mickles on the stage with somebody new on a perfectly average Sunday afternoon. I feel the heartbeat from miles away. All the while water's rising, I got debts to pay. I'm not waiting for a savior, but I'm doing okay. Finding
That was Blueberry Bog by Humbird here on 89.5 KQAL. I am Abby Hawkey, and you are listening to The Sound. We are here with Siri Undlin, who is the lead singer and also guitarist for Humbird, and she's here to discuss their new album, which came out April 12th. So, getting back to the questions, tell us more about the song Blueberry Bog. What is the message behind this song?
I feel like there's a lot of messages, probably. Like if someone listens to it, they could take away whatever they need the message to be. But I was definitely, reading headlines and feeling super heavy about like just these insanely huge macro scale topics like climate change. And you're kind of just like, I think all of us are like in the world and our lives are so like specific to us. And then we're all like sharing these like huge existential questions at the same time. So I kind of wanted to write a song that was like, if anything, a pep talk for myself of like, yeah, this stuff it feels like impossible and so heavy and excruciating a lot of days. But what are you going to do on the days to like show up for this like weird life that you have? So if you listen to the verses, it's like, it's talking about going on a walk with someone you love. It's talking about going to your favorite like pub and hearing just like your favorite neighborhood musician play and just like having pals over for dinner. Like it's so wholesome, but it's also about the apocalypse. And it's kind of like an upbeat song, which is just like, it's kind of this attitude of like, well, what do you want to do when everything seems so hard and impossible? Like, how do you want to be a kind, compassionate human in the world? So that's one version of a message if people want that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I love the song, and also I just love blueberries too. So
yeah, they're so good. It's so delicious.
Favorite fruit.
I'm with you, 100%.
Yeah. What is the most fulfilling part of songwriting to you?
Good question. I haven't really thought about that. I mean, I love writing. Like even just being in my room or somewhere quiet and writing itself is such a satisfying and fun process. Often like when you figure out what rhymes or what clicks, it's just like, oh yes, like there it is, the puzzle fits. But then also sometimes or very often songs sort of like reveal things about how you feel that you might not even realize. So that's always really cool too. Like I'll finish a song and be like, oh, I guess that's how I've been feeling this week. But it's also so fun and fulfilling to like bring a song to my bandmates and see how it transforms, and like releasing music, getting to perform it for people. Like there's like pros and cons to like all of it. And I think generally like the life of a song, whenever you're finishing one satisfying part of it, like you're kind of also feeling ready for the next part. You like want to see it all the way through. So I think kind of the like walking through the whole process, like once I've kind of done the whole thing with a song, I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like a song isn't something you can like touch or taste or see, but like you go on this journey and you go places you kind of can't really plan on or expect, and that's always really cool to look back on.
Yeah. Would you say that a song can be unsuccessful?
Totally. Yeah. I write so many trash songs, like a lot. And even the good songs that I'm like, I'm proud of this. Like, I think it's a good song. Like in some audiences, it's a hit and it makes sense and it clearly like resonates with people. And then like the next night you're in a different town with a different audience. And you're like, whoa, that song did not work tonight.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's not only do I write bad songs often, sometimes even the ones I like, I'm like, oh, that crowd really didn't like that one.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll just try again tomorrow. And you like always try to get better at the writing process too. So like, even if an audience maybe doesn't seem that into it, sometimes you're like, well, I stand by this song. Like you guys might not get it, but I like it. So I'm playing it.
Yeah. That's the thing about performing a song or just being a musician in general, is the fact that you also have to think, hey, I'm I'm the one writing this song. This song is for you, the audience, but it is also for me, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's true. And it's funny too, because also sometimes songs that I think are bad that I wrote, like my bandmate will hear, or my boyfriend will hear, whoever hears it, and they're like, I love that one. And you're like, I thought that was so bad. Like, it's surprising that people like your songs to begin with and want to come hear them. Like, that's always so cool and never gets old. And then I am like, so many times I've learned, like, I'm not the best judge of my songs either. Like, the ones I think are bad, people like. The ones that I think are really good, sometimes someone's like, yeah, that didn't really work. And I'm like, what? Like, I think it works. So sometimes you just are like, whatever, we'll just play it all.
Yeah.
And like, you never know. So you just got to like play something, see how it feels, and kind of fine tune your own intuition around it as you go, but you never really know for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so going into the next song now. I'm Abby Hawkey. You're listening to 89.5 KQAL's The Sound. I am joined here by Siri Undlin of the amazing indie folk band, Humbird. And this next song you will hear is track number 4 off of your third album, titled Right On. This is Child of Violence on KQAL 89.5.
Child of violence, another language gone silent. I am the red ribbon legacy, rolling past the knees. Rivers, salt water. change. When you're talking to me, call me by my name.
Once again, that was Child of Violence by Humbird here on 89.5 KQAL. I am Abby Hawkey, and you are listening to The Sound. We are here with Siri Undlin, who is the lead singer and guitarist for Humbird, to discuss their new album, Right On. So, getting back into those questions. So this song is about white supremacy. Why did you decide to include this song on the record, and what do you hope that people take away from it?
Yeah, good question. I mean, a topic like white supremacy is so vast and huge, and I always start off by saying I'm definitely no expert, and I feel like there's so many amazing thinkers and philosophers and activists to learn from, and when I play this song and I talk about it on stage, I always make sure to say, like, I'm learning too. And I'm not on stage to like preach about anything, but I think the more I learn about the ways in which white supremacy has been like utilized in our country and on the whole globe now, and just how much it impacts all of our lives, like no matter what our background is, like it's this system that is just so horrific that is still with us. And I feel like especially people who are white like might not realize that like it impacts all of us. And I feel like the more we can be honest about where we witness it and where we like inhabit it in ourselves and in our communities, like the more we're talking about it and acknowledging it when it's out in the open, you can like be one small part of dismantling it like forever, once and for all. And I don't really know what that looks like, and thank God there are way smarter people than me who can like lead the way. But I think as like a white American in 2024 traveling around the country making music, I see it in really like surprising ways that to me, where I'm always like, oh my gosh, like the more I learn, the more I realize I have to learn. And this feels like an important thing to be addressing on stage with people who are like involved and excited about the genre of like folk music and Americana music, because I think other genres often tackle those topics really directly and in really powerful ways. And I think that there are artists in the folk and Americana world who are doing that, but it might not be as prevalent as it could be. And it can be a really white genre, even though that's not its histories or its roots. So it's like, I feel like talking about it on stage is like the bare minimum for what you can do to be like part of addressing those inequalities, and also just being like, yeah, screw this. Like, and I was angry when I wrote that song. I was feeling so angry about how we don't get a choice, but we're like part of it. So what are you going to do to like be accountable and responsible for this legacy that we all inherit? So I did kind of go off on a soapbox there, but that's how I feel about it. And again, like I'm learning all the time. So it leads to a lot of interesting conversations at the merge table and after the show. And I feel like to cultivate an environment where you all feel like you're learning together and hopefully like figuring it out together, that feels really hopeful to me. So I hope people hear that in the song when they listen to it too.
Yeah, I get that from that. I'm in college and I'm learning all of these things about white supremacy and the realities of the world, and all of the things in which we kind of just are ignorant of, or that we ignore even though it is staring us in the face. And I think that white supremacy is definitely one of those things, in terms of this song kind of being more about, seeing the impact of white supremacy and of getting people to talk about it. Do you want to potentially write another song or like a part 2 to this song that's talking about what we can do after we talk about it, like actual like action that we can take to kind of dismantle this white supremacy?
That's a good question. I personally don't have like distinct plans ever, but often the songs have a way of like answering their own questions. Like even in this case, like Child of Violence is on this album, and I wrote it when I was like so mad and like really processing a lot internally and observing a lot externally. But on this album, like 3 songs later, there's a song called Song for the Seeds.
Yeah.
And it's like about planting native plants and tearing up your lawn and like learning from nature. And like the more I live my life, the more I learn from really smart people around me, I realize like those 2 things are actually so related. Like when we take care of the natural world, or we, you know, replace monocrops like cornfields with these like really abundant ecosystems that have so much to provide for us, like that's also racial justice in its own way. Like these things are not separate. So I don't know if I have plans to write like a direct part 2 to Child of Violence, but I think all songs and all like creative work, if you're really coming from a place of like being curious and wanting to learn, is like every song is the answer to the song before it. But you're like, it's kind of this ongoing dialogue with the world, with your experience in the world, and like what you still have yet to figure out. And it's just like one step across a river after another.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. One of the things I love about your record is that none of the songs sound exactly the same, yet they all fit really well together as a unit.
Thank you.
Why did you choose these songs specifically?
I think that I had been writing a lot of music that I knew was going to be louder, if that makes sense. Like in the history of this band, we've been more folky in the past, but I was writing songs with my electric guitar and like really turning up the amp when I was doing it. So I was like, okay, I have a feeling that when we get in the studio, these are going to be more rockin' than we have been in the past. So that really informed like the decisions of like who to work with and how to do it. Like I worked with my best friends and we recorded it in a really old fashioned way. We recorded it to tape. So it was like all analog. And we knew it was going to be like a warmer sound, but also imperfect and like kind of charmingly so. And basically I write a lot of songs, and like I was saying earlier, not all of them are great. Yeah. But I took like out of maybe 100, I took 30 that I thought were the best ones of the batch. And then me and my bandmates picked the songs that are on the album. So it went, you know, that's like, it was a pretty serious editing process, but I self-selected to a smaller group. And then as a band, we kind of went through and we were like, all right, if we had to choose between like 8 and 10 songs that are the best of these 30, like which ones? And then you can kind of listen and be like, this one feels like it goes with that one. So maybe these both should be on there. It's kind of like a weird 3D puzzle that you put together as a group, and you don't really know how it's going to turn out at the end.
Yeah, it's like making a bouquet of flowers, trying to figure out which ones work
complement
well
each other.
Yeah.
I love that metaphor.
So what is your recording process like? How has it changed since the first album?
Well, I think that anytime you're doing something for the first time, especially recording, it can be really scary because you're like not used to hearing your own voice, and oftentimes it's really expensive to record, so you like have that in the back of your head, like I don't want to like, you know, waste money and like do a bad job, like all these like stressors I think that I felt at the beginning of learning how to record were really prevalent. And the more I do it, just the more comfortable I feel. I think as you go, you find the people you like to work with, you know what makes you feel relaxed, what helps you play your best. And I think, you know, this was our 3rd album, and I think number 3 was like the most fun because it was just like, all right, let's have a blast while we do this. Like the world is so harsh and it can be really hard out there, but like making music with your friends should be so fun. So let's do that. And kind of we recorded in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Yeah. And we did it kind of like a retreat or something. Like I just kind of asked everyone to like clear their schedule for 5 days. And I was like, we're just going to do this
Yeah.
and see what happens. And I think it's kind of like a weird retreat. It's not a vacation because you're working really hard, but you're kind of removed from your everyday like responsibilities and obligations, and you can kind of suspend any pressure you feel. So I prefer to record that way. And other people have really different techniques. I respect it all, but I just know I work better if I'm like really focused on something. I like want to see it through to the end. So chunks of time work really good for me.
Was it difficult kind of recording it via tape?
It actually was so fun, and I like really prefer it to digital, which I didn't expect. I was like, okay, this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be, but people might not realize this, but when you're recording to tape, you only get a few tries. Like if you're doing it digitally, you can literally try forever. Like you can track a vocal take like 1,000 times and be so persnickety about wanting it to be perfect, and you can just like basically do surgery on an audio track to make it perfect. But often a perfect vocal track is pretty boring. Like some of like the amazing pop stars that we hear on the radio, I'm like, they're clearly so talented, but it's too perfect. Like I'm bored. I love it when there's little mistakes or little nuances in people's voices. And I think tape is perfect for that because you only get a few tries. So you play it through and you play your best like 4 times, and then you like pick the best one. And you don't really get to like, you can go back and make little changes, but it's so inconvenient that you have to really, really sit there and decide, like, how much do I care that there's a little rasp in my voice right there? Or how much do we care that the guitar came in a little bit before the beat there? Like, you just have to be like, actually, this is a living, breathing work of art, and it's totally not perfect, and that's great. And then you just roll with it.
I think that that's a way that you can talk about, like, the whole album. It's finding that sort of value in the imperfections.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then like appreciating the imperfections, like that's kind of where the magic comes from. So yeah.
We're gonna go into our next song now. My name is Abby Hawkey, and you are listening to 89.5 KQAL's The Sound. I am joined here by Siri Undlin, Right On. This song is Ghost on the Porch, and you're listening to it here on 89.5 KQAL.
My mirror image just standing in the door. I asked who sends me from this place? Are you a liar or a warning, or a ghost with my own face? It doesn't matter, the one who was not me cried out. Soon the storm is coming, and you must not be about. What of my children, what of my garden, what of the life that I have built? Storm or not, I will not leave, save death should come himself. It is him, she spoke with a pale face. He rides this way with wicked speed, your breath he means to take. In and out, my lungs billow strong and proud. Yet another man who so intends to sink me in the ground.
That was Ghost on the Porch, which is track number 6 of the newest album by Humbird here on 89.5 KQAL. I am Abby Hawkey, and you are listening to The Sound, and we are here with Siri Undlin, who is the lead singer and guitarist for Humbird. First of all, I want to say that Ghost on the Porch, I think, is my favorite song off of this record.
Awesome.
It reminds me a little bit of the band Coyote Kid. A little bit.
Ooh, I don't know them. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, they have that kind of edgy, macabre a little bit, kind of like, think of a gothic western.
Yes.
That's what
I
I'll
love
say.
the vibe. I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah. And amazing vocals, and they're from Minnesota, so yeah.
Oh my gosh, I definitely will check them out after this.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song on the record? Do you have one that, speaks to you more than others, or do you just kind of love them all? And
I feel like if I said I love them all, it's like a really boring answer.
True.
Even though I feel like I should say that because I do love them all, but I think it depends. It's like, wherever you're at on a given day, certain songs are going to like hit stronger, I guess. But I will say that definitely my very favorite to perform live is Ghost on the Porch. And also it's the scariest. Like it's the one where it's like every time before we play it, I just take a really deep breath and I'm like, all right, you might screw this up terribly and it's not going to be the end of the world, but it's going to be so fun if you do it right. And like my bandmates are super talented. They always nail their parts. There's like, it's just a really fast guitar part. So like singing and playing it at the same time is always like, all right, here we go. But it's so fun. And it seems like audiences love that one too. So it's really great to kind of feed off a energy loop between the performers and the audience. Because that one's kind of weirdly dancey. It's so dark, but also kind of, there's like this beat that people seem to react to. So yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm saying that one's my favorite today.
Okay. All right. It might change. That's okay. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
I know that you did a Watson a fellowship in which you went to other countries to study, folk tales and folklore and fairy tales. And I would say that this song is kind of the most folklore slash fairy tale-ish sounding.
Definitely.
So is this song based on, and are any of your songs themselves based on things that you learned in terms of stories while you were on your Watson Fellowship?
Yeah, well, the Watson Fellowship, for those who don't know and are curious, is this like 1-year research project that you get as a college student. So you like go off for a year and the rules are like you can't come back to the US and you have to travel alone and you answer this question. So yeah, I mean, that year was so wild and formative. I was looking at how people use music to tell stories and like folklore and fairy tales and stuff. And I kind of feel like the things I learned that year are in every single song I write. This song actually is like, it was a short story I wrote a couple of years ago. And it's like the thing with like folklore-y fairy tale stories, even if you wrote it, you're still like drawing from the tradition, like ideas and motifs and archetypes from older stories. And you can like kind of rearrange them and mishmash them to make something fresh where you're like, I don't think I heard this story ever, but it's like a combination of a lot of other stories, which I think is the beauty of these folk traditions is they're handed down. You preserve what you can of them or what is yours to preserve, but you can also like move things around like respectfully and playfully to like have them fit in different ways. So yeah, there's definitely fairy tales and folklore in all of the Humbird album releases. Like if people listen closely to the lyrics, there's like references everywhere. But this one is like kind of a weird, just original story that I turned into a song because it seemed like the right move.
Were you the main character in this short story that you wrote, or was it somebody else that you just kind of came up with almost like a backstory for?
Yeah, it's a fictional story. It's like a fictional ghost story of a person coming home and then a like ghost that looks exactly like them is standing on their
Yeah.
porch is kind of the idea. And it's fun with fairy tales and folkloric stories because you can be the main character, or like
Yeah.
I would argue that like we all are. Every time we listen to a fairy tale or watch a fairy tale, you're kind of imagining yourself as the main character, even though it's not literally happening to you. And I think that's part of why those stories are so great, is they like allow us to imagine like, what would I do in this situation? Or like, maybe dragons aren't as scary as I thought, or like whatever the overall message is. Like when you imagine yourself in the story, you kind of learn more about who you are or what's possible that you maybe thought wasn't. So in some ways, totally, I'm the main character, but it didn't literally happen to me.
So one of the other things I want to talk about when it comes to this song is there's, to me, listening to it, it sounded like there was like some hoof clomping sort of sound effects in the background. Was this like an intentional thing that you did?
We didn't. Well, so that sound that you hear is actually just this old drum machine.
Ooh.
I don't know too much about the instrument because I didn't program it or play it on the recording.
Yeah.
Our producer Shane did, but I'm pretty sure it's like a drum machine from like the 80s or 90s.
Ooh.
And it sounds really like the sounds on it are just surprising and like kind of old school, and he plays around with it and it's really fun it just sounds different than a lot of the drum machine beats I hear in other areas of life, like out at shows or listening to albums I love that are more recent. So we had fun with that. And yeah, Shane, we were like playing this song without that, and then he kind of was messing around and added it in, and it really created some momentum and a feel we were like, what even is this song? Like, this is such a funny vibe compared to what we normally do. But like, heck yeah, we were so excited when we recorded it. And honestly, when I listen back to it, I'm always like giggling because I can't believe we made that. Like, it's just it's kind of shocking. And yeah, that's always cool when creativity just goes a direction and you kind of follow it and see where you end up.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think that's what music writing should be.
At its best. Yeah, totally.
I am Abby Hawkey, and you are listening to 89.5 KQAL's The Sound. I am joined right now by Siri Undlin of the indie folk band Humbird. And the next song in which I have for you is called Cornfields and Roadkill, which is track number 2 off of their third album. So, yeah, this is once again Cornfields and Roadkill on 89.5 KQAL.
Ghost farm, hollowed out and filled with stars. The sky fell through the busted roof, a hole so wide the moon came to. There's a strange glow in these kind of ruins, a broken dream we're clinging to. Cornfields, roadkill, bird song, hoping still. About that oak tree there on the edge of that property, on land stolen, bought and tilled 200 years, and that tree is still holding up the canopy of a forest cut for currency. Can't imagine, still I try. Intelligence outside my mind, patience, dignity, old growth, green leaves, deep roots, metal teeth cutting through the ears of those tree rings. Tornado siren, tumbleweed, Christmas lights on Main Street. Cornfields, roadkill, bird song, hoping still.
That was Cornfields and Roadkill by Humbird here on 89.5 KQAL. I am Abby Hawkey, and you are listening to The Sound. I am once again joined here with Siri Undlin, who is the lead singer and guitarist for Humbird, and we are discussing their new album, Right On. It feels like an album of... It's very raw, and it's an experience of its own. Would you say that as a band that this kind of album is something that you strive to produce?
Definitely. I mean, just the fact that you describe it that way, that's like the dream. You know, you always want to make music that people can listen to and feel like they've experienced something, or that they've like experienced their own life a little different. Like I think that's a big part of why music is like the thing I love to do and love to do with my friends. And I think it's why so many of us love it. So yeah, that's always the goal. And I think that in our case, we've been touring really hard for, like, I think almost 8 or 9 years. Like we're getting close, like a decade of touring and performing, and we really wanted this album to capture that kind of grit and like the road miles. Like they really change the music, and they also change you, and for better or for worse. But we wanted to make sure that that feeling was part of the album of like, traveling all these roads and playing in all these different communities. We wanted the flavor of all those places and people to be part of the music. And I think you can't really fake that. Mm-mm. Like, I think people listen to this album and they're like, oh, this sounds like a band that's on the road. And it's true. Like, that's what we were doing. So it was kind of like, let's just be who we are and let's represent what we're doing in real life, and like, just let the recordings capture it.
Do you have any fun stories from touring?
So many fun stories, so many heartbreaking stories. It's like if you went on a road trip with some of your best friends that never ended, and you also, it's kind of your job, but it's a really weird job. Like it's so hard to describe it until you do it. And then it's just this like, it's like a punch in the face and a hug at the same time. It's so many emotions all in one day, and you never get any alone time. You maybe get to sleep in a bed, but often not. Like we crash with friends and family on the road, and it's just chaos. But then there's a lot of like waiting around too, because like if you're traveling with a group of people, like you just gotta wait around sometimes. And that's just part of it. But we try to approach it like we're a big family and try to look out for each other and communicate well. But yeah, this radio program could be like 11 hours long of me just like talking about like the good stuff and the bad stuff. But I think if people just imagine a road trip, but you got to be at sound check on time, and you're probably going to be at the venue till pretty late afterwards while you're doing a road trip, they'd have a pretty good image of like what what goes down.
How do you maintain your sanity when you're out there on the road and your connection to nature?
Well, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you fully are not okay, and that's just part of it. I think that's part of life. There's like, you can do everything you can to maintain sanity or to maintain a sense of feeling grounded, but then life happens, tour happens, and you're just like, oh, okay, never mind. I'm struggling, or I haven't been eating well, or I haven't been sleep. Like, there's just so many things that can happen that I think actually the most important thing is like just sort of accepting that you don't always have control over if you're okay or not, and like learning various ways to move through it and like be kind to yourself about it. That's kind of where I'm at as far as staying sane on the road goes. Because I don't think it's possible to be super healthy all the time while you're doing that work. It's just too weird. I think a lot of artists navigate anxiety and depression and all the other spicy things that can go on in your brain, just like everyone else. So it's kind of more about like just supporting each other with wherever you're at.
What's next for you? Where can people hear more about you and your songs, your albums?
Yeah. Well, we're going to be touring again this fall and then probably start working on new music. It's sort of this, like the ongoing cycle of being a band. But we like to do weird stuff. And, like often, like a couple of years ago, we played some shows in a planetarium under some star shows. And we often do like fairy tales and backyards and stuff. So I think we're going to keep like plugging along and making music and releasing it and touring it. But I think we'll always also try to incorporate some like weird stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is yet, but I'm actively brainstorming our kind of next weird idea. And if people like want to stay in touch on what it is, like obviously social media is an easy place to do that. But I also do a Patreon page, which is kind of where I do a lot of brainstorming and sharing of ideas as they're percolating. So those are the places I would suggest people stay in touch.
Before we go into the last song, which is going to be a song for the Seeds, which is the last song on this album. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much for doing this interview with us and for joining us.
Of course.
And for joining us on the sound. But song for the Seeds. First of all, I love the fact that it feels like a really good like concluder, I guess. I don't know if that's a word, but we're going for it.
It is now.
For this album, what is the message behind this song? Other than just, continuing to see nature and learn from it and keep putting, seeds in the ground and letting it grow and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's the literal message of this song, and there's like the undercurrents of it for sure. I think that this song is very much like, I'm not a religious person, but it's very much like a prayer or like a blessing in the sense of like, and we've talked about this already today, but just like, it's so hard out there and people can understandably be so lost or overwhelmed or scared. Like all those things are so valid. And it's like, yeah, it's tough. And I think finding wisdom and instruction can be like also a hard thing to seek out, because you're like, who can I trust? Where do I look? Like, what's people's motivations for giving me advice? Like it can be really hard to know who to listen to and what to trust. And that song I feel like I'm just pointing to some of my favorite plants. And I always feel like such a hippie when I talk about it, but I don't even care. Where it's just like, if you look around you and you are observing the natural world, there is so much instruction and wisdom for like what to do next. And it's like, no matter what is going on in the world, like nature is like just plugging along. And like even through like the most like, horrible things, like nature is like finding a way forward, even if it is still heartbreaking or doesn't look how it used to. Like I just feel like it's this ever fertile place to just be like, okay, I'm lost, I can't do this, I don't know how to fix something. And you just like look out and there it is, like these little messages that are around us. And I feel like this album as a whole definitely tackles a lot of hard stuff, a lot of like hard emotions. And so it only felt right to kind of like end on this note that was like, we can show up for the things that are really hard. We can do the things that scare us. And like, we can be angry and honest and like confrontational. Like there's moments on this album that are like, I feel like are confrontational. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like we're all on this like really wild journey together. And I think these plants and animals around us are often showing us a way forward, and they're like right in front of our nose and we don't see it, like me included. I often miss it.
Yeah.
So the song is also like a reminder. It's like I get to sing it every day as a reminder to myself to just like chill out and look closer at things.
Yeah.
And it's not so dire. I always feel like it's not as dire as I thought it was if I slow down and pay attention.
I'm Abby Hawkey. You are listening to KQAL 89.5, The Sound, and I was joined here today by Siri Undlin of the indie folk band Humbird, and to play out for all y'all, this is their last song, track number 9. This is Songs for the Seeds, here on 89.5 KQAL. Thank you very much, Siri.
Thanks for having me, Abby. This was really fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, bluebell, do tell. I'm listening, and I mean well. Even monsters like their flowers, you watch them fall from their towers through the cracks. One seed at a time I give back what was never mine. Yarrow, what of tomorrow? Teach me to heal my sorrow. Set the boundary, soft and loving. Clean the wounds of each day from mending through the cracks. One seed at a time I give back what was never mine. Clover, I step over, takes water from the sky and sows her no more lawns. I will lay you down, learn to be patient and spread it out through the cracks. One seed at a time I give back what was never mine. Through the cracks, one seed at a time I give back what was never mine. Oh, Cosmo, where do we go? It's big out there and so hard to know what it means, but you're out there dancing. Could it be as simple as catching the breeze through the cracks? One seed at a time I give back what was never mine. Through the cracks, one seed at a time I give back what was never mine. Through the cracks, one seed at a time I give back what was never mine. Through the cracks, one seed at a time I give back what was never mine.
Thanks again to Siri Undlin for joining us tonight on The Sound. To hear more from Humbird, purchase merch, and get the latest news on upcoming tour dates, check them out on Bandcamp and at humbirdmusic.com. For more deep dives into local and regional albums, tune into The Sound every Wednesday night at 6, right here on 89.5 KQAL. You can also listen to past episodes of The Sound on your favorite streaming services. Find links at kqal.org. I'm Abby Hawkey, and we've just heard from Siri Undlin on The Sound.
Thanks for listening to The Sound. The Sound is produced by KQAL FM on the campus of Winona State University. Visit us online at kqal.org. Theme music for the sound provided by Mike Terrell of Fires of Denmark.